Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Medicaid Monday. Today's session is going to cover the home care process once eligibility is determined. So what happens next after the financial eligibility from the county is done? How does the process go forward from there? What are the challenges? What are the new wrinkles in the home care assessment system? And for that, I have my partner who is here to my right, Frank Hemming, who is known to most of you. And we also have Nina Krisanda. This is our firm, Pierro, Connor and Strauss, and this is Nina's firm. Nina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Nina Krisanda. I am an occupational therapist and I work as a professional healthcare advocate for Everhome Care Advisors and Viva Links.
So Everhome and our firm have worked very successfully together. We're going to talk about how in a moment, but these are some of the agenda items for today, and we're going to cover them. There's a lot to cover, so we'll be going fairly quickly. So stay with us. The Medicaid numbers, which is a review for all of you, New York Independent Assessor role, managed long-term care enrollment, obtaining necessary hours of care, and the immediate needs procedure, and how does that differ from a standard Medicaid application. And for this, I always turn to my partner, Frank.
I say this is always going to be my part. That's why I'm here. So anytime we do Medicaid, we always talk numbers. And now we have numbers on the screen. So again, single person in the home trying to get home care to come take care of them where they want to be. You have to abide by income and asset rules. So now they're right in front of you. So single person income, their new limitation for this year is $1,820 per month. If you're a couple, again, you can't double it. So it goes up to $2,453 per month between both spouses. And then you have your asset or your resource limit over there on your right. So again, single person, it's $32,396. Couple, it's up to $43,781. Been saying these numbers for quite a while, and we're almost at the end of 2025 where I'm going to have to learn new numbers. So that's always the fun part of this. Is as soon as I get them down, we have to learn new numbers. Biggest thing is, in addition to these, is if you're the community spouse, you have your own allowance of $39.48. You get the resource allowance for the community spouse. That's that range between $74,820 and $157,920. And then the community, or then you get the institutionalized spouse. So we're not, or an institutionalized person. My apologies. If you have somebody in the nursing home getting Medicaid, they get to keep $50 a month as income. Same number since 1965. That one's probably not going to change for next year.
And if you don't know the financial eligibility rules, most people don't know them all. We have prior Medicaid Monday videos available on our website at pierolaw.com that cover in depth home care, exempt resources, non-exempt resources, planning for Medicaid, planning for assets, planning for income. But today's session is really focused on these topics and sorting out the home care program in New York State, how you get hours of care, what the process is. And Frank, you want to just walk through the various topics here?
Sure. So I think most people, when they think of the elder law attorney's role, they're thinking the financial piece. It's getting eligible based on those numbers that I just quickly threw at our audience. Well, that's kind of only half the battle, especially these days. So as soon as you get that financial eligibility determined by your local county office, if you're upstate, or the HRA office, if you're down in New York City, then the second part of this is now the medical piece where you have to get assessments done, enrollments done, and care essentially started. And the question always comes, well, how does that go? And what does that look like? So the way I kind of always think of it in my head is you kind of have three separate tracks for this. So for many people, you're going to go through that bulleted number 1 point, that managed long-term care avenue. That's when you're working with a managed long-term care company. Essentially, it's an insurance company that comes out, they do evaluations with their nurses, they determine hours, and they provide care. Right below that, though, is that we have our consumer-directed personal assistance model, much more online for people in rural areas, or if you need a very high level of care where just regular home health care aides cannot service a case from a medical standpoint. So number one is kind of like your agency model, where either they're providing the aides and doing payroll, or they're just doing payroll essentially, and you're finding your own aides. Number two and number three, those are your waiver programs. These are for people that need more supervision in terms of the nursing home transition diversion waiver, or sometimes we do work with people who may not be elderly, but they've suffered a brain injury and they need other services through Medicaid to help with things like housing, job assistance, case management, things like that. So you have 2 and 3 as your waivers. And then your last one is your PACE program, which stands for Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly. This is a growing program, especially here in the Capital District, where essentially all of your Medicaid services go under one giant umbrella. We're very much fans of this model. We did talk in previous Medicaid Mondays about how this is looking to expand within the Capital District. The biggest thing here is you have to live within the area that the PACE model services in order to access it. So as great of a model as it can be, it doesn't always apply to many folks because they don't live in the places where the model exists. So you basically have your agency model, you have your waivers model, PACE model, and then it's determining which avenue fits the client's need best. And that's sometimes why people like us rely on people like Nina.
And the reason that I'm here today is because one thing is the NHTD program, the waiver program, has a potential capitation number planned, which means that there's going to be a limited number of people that are going to be able to be applicants. That includes current enrollees, let alone new people that need to get on the program.
So the choice of your program is critical. Are you able to find an agency that can staff your case? Do you have to go to the consumer directed program to find your own aides? And the PACE model, which, as Frank said, we had the two local PACE models, Hudson Headwaters and St. Peter's, at our Elder Law Forum back in May. And it's a fascinating program. It's how things should be, but it just doesn't have enough oomph yet, enough girth to put all the pieces together and take care of enough people. So we are stuck, if you will, with all of the other models. And as time has gone on, it used to be so easy. You applied to the county made a financial eligibility determination. They sent the county health nurse out to the home. They did an assessment. You knew who was doing the assessment, and you would get an award of hours from the county as to how your case was going to be built and who you could use as your caseworkers. That changed. And Frank, NYIA was brought into the situation and put in the role of assessing at different levels what's going on in terms of your application.
Yeah, so NYIA is kind of the first hurdle you have to get through once you get through that financial piece. So NYIA, because we're going to probably call it NYIA from here on out for the rest of the presentation. When we say NYIA, we mean the New York Independent Assessor program. So some people call it NYIAP. We tend to use NYIA in this office, but it's all kind of the same thing under the same umbrella. So essentially, they're the registered nurses that come out and they do what's called your CHA, or your community health assessment. So these are nurses contracted through Maximus and the other people involved with New York State that their main job is to come out to determine, are you sick enough to need help in your house? And unfortunately, the main reason why such a position is even needed is because there have been issues with potential fraud or misenrollments throughout the history of the Medicaid program here in New York. So this was the state's way of handling that, to try to make sure that only qualified people who were sick enough to need the care were actually going to be enrolling with these programs and trying to get the care that they need. So that was how they did that. The second piece of it is the provider arm. NYIA. So these are your physicians, your nurse practitioners, your physician's assistants, who actually meet with someone who's trying to get home care assistance, where they have never met that individual before, and they conduct kind of the clinical exam part of it. So that way you have the in-home nurse assessment, you have the clinical arm with your medical professional. They put their heads together, they come up with a recommendation as to whether you're in need of services or not, and then you get passed off down the road to the next arm of the process.
And that arm is?
That's typically going to be your MLTC enrollment, or going back to the county if it's a immediate needs situation. And
Frank has been doing this for about 10 years now. I've been doing it for about 40.
A little longer.
And 11, 12 years?
Yeah. No, you.
Oh, 42 years, yeah. And so the process for us as attorneys, and I used to be able to do the Medicaid application start to finish, but it has so many moving parts now post-financial eligibility that we have to work with other professionals, related professionals. And we work with what used to be geriatric care managers, now aging life care professionals. And we work with a colleague down on Long Island, Suzanne Paolucci. We work with agencies in New York City, but locally, we work with Nina and her group.
Yes.
So Nina, your role in this is really to facilitate this process to make sure that the end result, which is the number of hours, is the right result.
That's correct. Yes. And that is a complicated process to ensure and to do your best. NYIA's role on this page, we're talking about its regulation. So the assessments are all standardized, which is, it could be a benefit. And the doctors and the nurses don't know you, so there is that objective component as well.
And then you get to the new threshold.
So this is one of the unfortunate new things that we've had to counsel people on for just the past few months, and that's the increase in the amount of ADLs required to kind of meet the mere threshold for care. So it's now, again, you now need assistance with at least 3 activities of daily living if you're going through just kind of the regular enrollment process. Or if you do have an Alzheimer's or dementia diagnosis, then you need assistance with at least 2. These used to be at least 2 with 1 with an Alzheimer's diagnosis, so they upped both of them by 1. So now instead of 2 and 1, now it's 3 and 2. And we did put on our slide new regulation, another new hurdle, if you will, where there is now a separate form that the physician has to actually include with your packet of information that certifies that you have a dementia or Alzheimer's diagnosis. So I guess weirdly, someone may not be aware of their diagnosis, but actually have to be informed by their doctor that they're being formally diagnosed with that. And it goes as part of their medical record throughout this whole entire process.
How the heck would a normal applicant for Medicaid know what these rules are, understand them, and know what their eligibility is for the program? So Nina, you are a professional healthcare advocate,
Yes.
your official title. How do you work with families as they're going through this process? And what is your role? How do you go through and counsel them to get the Medicaid they need?
So first I meet the client where they are. I need to understand what they understand. And then from there, we build upon our knowledge together of the situation, of the client's needs, of their functional capacity. And from there, we're able to establish a relationship that gives me the ability to see a clear picture of the client. So when the person, whoever it is from NYIA, Maximus, or the MLTC comes out, I'm able to be there and speak clearly and thoroughly with that clinician so they know what the client needs if the client is unable to verbalize that themselves.
And Frank, we've had a lot of clients that have shot themselves in the foot going through that assessment process.
Yeah, one of the sad realities of working in this area is just learning that people, especially older folks, have a lot of pride and they don't like admitting when they need help or that they're not capable of doing things. One of the reasons why I think people live to be into their 80s and their 90s is because they want to do well. They want to do the things they want to do, how they want to do them, and they're used to doing them how they can. Unfortunately, when it comes to this part, if you tell the county or you tell the Maximus person, or you tell the MLTC person, whoever's in front of you, if you tell them I'm fine and I don't need help, they will be more than happy to note in your file that you're fine and that you don't need help. Right?
No matter what they see.
I say, as much as like that nurse might seem like a nice person, that doesn't always mean that they're there for the best interest of the person in front of them. So unfortunately, this is paramount of importance to make sure that accurate information is being relayed to that assessing person, because they're only going to note what they're told. They're not going to question it. It's not their job to question it. It just, that's kind of like why someone like Nina becomes so integral to this process, because we might have everything might have gone really well up to this point. We might have gotten to this kind of fork in the road. And if you do badly here, the rest of it can go very, very sideways very, very quickly. And then it takes a long time to undo or redo.
And now with these new rules, I've actually had a client contact me that's been disenrolled from Medicaid because they didn't meet the 3 ADL requirement. I don't know if any of you have had that same experience, but I'm guessing as the MLTCs examine their roles, they're going to be cherry picking cases and looking at dismissing people from the Medicaid program, home care program, based upon these new requirements. I didn't think it would happen quite this quickly because it only went into effect on September 1st. But this client said, yes, they got a notice they were disenrolled. So now they have to appeal and go back through the appellate rights. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Nina, there are a whole host of things that people don't really know and don't think about that go into this assessment.
Yeah, so apologies for the amount of stuff on this slide. It was hard for me to minimize the information for you. So there's a variety of levels of assistance, and we want to make sure that the clinician, nurse, or provider is understanding the exact level of supervision, contact guard, or whatever assistance they might need. Supervision, all of this is written out for you here. But ideally, you're looking for how much can the person do on their own and how much do they need help. Each ADL can be broken up into 12 steps. Every single one can be broken into multiple steps. Same for IADLs, the instrumental activities of daily living. They're outside of the home. But all of these ADLs, I'm an occupational therapist. These activities of daily living can be broken down into smaller pieces to truly show the clinician they need 50% or more of help for each of these activities for their tasking tool.
And that is not a legal determination, Frank,
No.
not something that we get involved with on a day-to-day basis. Some of you out there as attorneys may, if you're much more integrated into the Medicaid home care process, but the level of detail that's become necessary takes most attorneys out of the game, because who's going to pay an attorney's rate to be doing the analysis at this level, where they may find people, there are other groups out there that do this, like ICANN and NYIA, but Nina is a little bit less expensive than I am, I think.
I think so.
So from a client's perspective, you need someone actually better than me, because I don't have the knowledge base to do what Nina does, and who is going to come at it at an affordable rate, just to be practical about it. But then you have step 2, once you get past the NYIA hurdle, and we're at doctor's level.
Now we're at the independent practitioners panel. So all providers, whether that is medical doctor, your PA, your NP, all of those have to undergo and be part of Maximus's or NYIA's independent practitioners panel, which requires time, certification, and regulation. So they, for the most part, will not have anything to do with your doctor, but they might need to speak with them for some clarifying information if you are agreeable.
So at the physician level, this is a doctor that's not seen the patient, never met the patient, doesn't know the patient, is relying on whatever the record shows them.
Whatever the client has prepared, their medication list, their doctor's list, and whatever the nurse who came out was able to assess.
Yeah, so preparing not just the financial application, but the medical side of the application is critical. We're going to talk about immediate needs toward the end, but you have to do some homework up front to get the record complete for this physician review, because at the end of the day, if you get from the MLTC 4 hours and you need 12, you have to have a basis upon which to appeal that determination. So it becomes important to prepare the case in advance and not go back and try to scramble once you've gotten the limitation of the hours or a denial at some point.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge to just make clear to people, just to see kind of how different this process is than what used to exist, is again, it's in bold in the slide, and that's your personal doctor isn't used for any of this unless they're consulted by the NYIA practitioner that's reached out for additional information, which I can't speak to having ever heard that they've ever done that. I'm not saying that they haven't, because I'm not aware that they routinely do something like that. So you're taking this entirely new jumble of everything, and now you're throwing a completely new set of people at a person who's obviously in a fair need of a high level of care, where they wouldn't assess properly to need Medicaid in their home or wherever they want to be. So it's just, this is why this process now has become such a game, if you will, of now you have to make sure that you're stacking the deck in your favor as much as you can because of the new things that are now put in front of you.
And if I throw out the term M11Q, only those older than me would know what that is. But that was the physician assessment that actually went in with the application. It was a standardized form. It worked well. You had a good foundation for the medical determination, but the M11Q has been replaced by this independent physician process. So now we have determinations, Nina, being made that will impact the ultimate plan of care.
Absolutely. And significantly, something that is important to think about is, if their own provider can't speak up for them, who is going to? Their family member may not feel comfortable. They might not know what to say or what to do. So, it becomes very challenging when we're going through all of these steps.
So once you get over hurdle 1, you've gotten through the NYIA gate. Once you get over hurdle 2, your physician has approved you and you get referred now to a managed long-term care company.
That's right.
So Frank, the process from there goes back to DSS.
Yeah, so you're gonna talk to your managed long-term care company of choice, right? There's a list, which I think we have a link later in the presentation, where we have a list of all the managed long-term care companies and the counties that they serve. So once you've been approved through these hurdles, you're going to contact the MLTC of your choice, and then you're going to schedule an assessment with a nurse from them. And then they're going to send their own nurse to do kind of another reevaluation all over again. Except now this one's going to have an hours determination attached to it, where the nurse from the insurance company is going to put their heads together with all the information from the NYIA steps, and they're going to kind of put a whole plan of care together, give an hours award and an hours determination, and then hopefully get that all back to the client relatively quickly to start the enrollment procedures to get them enrolled with the services of the managed long-term care company, and then care would begin once all that happens, which sounds really simple in practice, but there's a lot of moving hurdles and pieces in there too.
And suffice it to say that the MLTC process is not a smooth one. You're going to, at some point, if you don't get the care that you need, you're going to have to file a certain level of appeal, internal appeals, external appeals. So it's not something that is just a gimme that you're going to go in and get what you think you deserve. You need to be prepared. You need to advocate. And there's another hurdle, a fourth hurdle, if you need 12 hours or more.
Yeah, this is where your independent review panel comes in, which at least is done on paper, by paper. They don't force someone back into a doctor's office in front of more strangers. But essentially, then it's another group of medical people that then are then going to reevaluate the whole plan of care and see whether that's a good use of kind of MLT resources and things, and then try to determine whether that person can remain safe at home if they need more than 12 hours per day on average of care. So again, if you've gotten this far and you haven't seen the need for professionals like Nina and geriatric care managers and healthcare advocates like her, I don't know really what else we could do.
So the independent review panel is going to come back with a determination. And they can't recommend a number of hours, as I understand it, but they are going to make a safety determination.
That's right.
So how often does that happen?
That does happen often, and with MLTCs as well, they also have something similar that goes on, and they try to deem the patient unstable in order to decline them. So this is something that does happen in both realms.
So knowing that the MLTC system is a capitated payment system where the insurer/provider gets a certain amount of money to allocate toward the cost of care. And if you have someone who needs 4 hours a day of care, they're going to be well on budget. And with that capitated payment, they're going to be able to have a low profit margin. If you have someone that needs 24 hours a day of care, then it's going to eat into that budget. They're probably going to be over budget in terms of the services that they can pay for. And now we have a dynamic tension between the MLTC and the consumer in terms of the number of hours. So as they say, Frank, what could go wrong?
I'd love to tell you that it's the most seamless, foolproof process there is, but the reality is very far from that truth, unfortunately. I can speak to the application timelines of this. While DSS offices are, I think, generally doing better as time has gone on, a lot of offices still are not hitting their mandated timelines by the state. So typically a Medicaid application has to be processed within 45 days of date of submission, unless it requires the use of a pooled trust and some other things, which would make that a 90-day timeline. So one place that it could go awry before you even get to all the medical pieces with all the things we've been talking about today is that your financial paperwork gets hung up at the county. Once you get through that hurdle, then you have to get on the phone to NYIA and you have to schedule your community health assessment and your clinical appointment. They're supposed to do that within a certain period of time. And for a long, long time, we were getting repeated notifications and things from clients saying, I got my appointment, but it's 3 weeks from now, or it's a month from now, or whatever. On the other hand, I will say we have heard relatively recently that they have been within that 14-day window. So I don't want to say this is a wide scale program just because I'm not comfortable making a grandiose statement like that, but I know it has been a problem in the past. Biggest thing that I know I certainly counsel clients on to the best of my ability before they get here is the last bullet, and that's the lack of sufficient hours. MLTCs at the end of the day, they're businesses. And Lou just kind of went through some of the dynamics of why they might not be awarding hours as you would hope, or that you would like, or maybe that you were even promised throughout the process. But it's unfortunate that we have to have so many conversations with people saying, don't expect that they're going to give you the 12 or the 14 or the 16 or the 20 or the 24 hours a day that we really think that you need, and that your medical team has even said that you need, because that's just not really how the process works. And that's even more going to show how important it is to have an advocate in your corner, making sure that you've done everything you can up to this point to make sure that you're getting a good outcome. And to also build that record that if we do need to appeal, go to fair hearing potentially, that we're going to have a good outcome if that's necessary too.
And the other thing that can be a delay in processing is requesting an in-person assessment, both for your NYIA assessments and for your MLTC assessments. We highly recommend that you have them come to you in person if that's possible, because over Zoom or the computer is just not going to give you the right representation of that person.
Yeah. And have you seen any pushback from the companies or NYIA when you've requested that in-person assessment?
They have been doing better this year.
Good. So, because for a long time, yes, they were, again, just from kind of word of mouth, you were hearing that they wouldn't offer that, and then you really had to push them to get that in-person assessment.
I would say the last 4 months have been more positive.
Good. That's positive.
And we've gotten through 27 minutes and I haven't mentioned PPL once.
Haha.
So the program that had taken off became widely used because of the lack of sufficient staffing at a lot of agencies, is the Consumer Directed Personal Assistance Program, or CDPAP. And if you go down the CDPAP path, you have yet another agency that you have to deal with,
That's right.
and that is PPL, who has replaced several hundred agencies. We worked closely with a number of them, and now with a single agency, they had, let's just say, bumps in the road getting to a point where they were functional so that you could enroll in CDPAP and get your aides hired and paid and on payroll on a timely basis. I think that's smoothed out a little bit, but
It's smoothed out to a degree, but there is a bit of miscommunication between the MLTCs and PPL from time to time. I find that quite often, that there is a lack of or slow scheduling and timing, especially when it comes to recertifications.
And Frank, how long does it take? We just went through all of this in 30 minutes, but how long does it take to get an actual Medicaid application from the time you have financial approval to the time that you get service in the home? Because that's the critical date.
I tell people 4 to 6 months. That's what you have to have in your head, because as you can see, any of these issues that we brought up can kind of throw a wrench in the whole timeline. You might hit speed bumps at the beginning, you might get it towards the medical beginning, you might get it towards the medical middle, you might get it at the medical end, or you might get it in all of those places. So I think being honest about it is the best way to make our clients the happiest and just the most on board for what this looks like. So 4 to 6 months is kind of the usual timeline if everything goes well, unless you need immediate needs, which is now the slide that we have in front of us now, which essentially it's an expedited process where we do some additional paperwork with the application. The nice thing is that it kind of forces the county to work on the application considerably faster, where they have to turn it around within 12 days of submission, or at least be able to come back to the submitter if they need additional information. So it certainly will light a fire under the Medicaid office that something has to be done quickly. The bad news about this is, again, you just need one kind of hurdle for it to go off kilter, but you're certainly getting a jump on getting through at least the initial hurdles. The biggest thing here, which I don't want to spend a lot of time on because I know we're at just about at our half hour, is the one downside to immediate needs is that while we do a lot of talk about financial planning and work with pooled trusts and things, that's kind of the one hurdle that you can't really clear very quickly when you have an immediate need situation, is getting that disability determination done, the pooled trust set up, the pooled trust authorized, the disability determination authorized. So you may have an instance where you can get the care much quicker, assuming that you can get through the financial application process and then the enrollment and all the kind of things that come after that. But you may not be able to use a pooled trust. You might be stuck in a position where you actually physically spend down, when we very rarely recommend that, unless it's a case like immediate.
So practitioners have dealt with this differently. The pool trust is an essential part of a Medicaid home care application for a lot of people who need that income to pay rent, household expenses, mortgages. So you need to keep the pool trust. You have $1,820 for a single individual. That's the limit. The rest goes into the pool trust, but it does take a disability determination. If your client is already determined disabled, if they are already on Social Security disability, then I believe that determination suffices for the
Yes.
pool trust enrollment.
Yes.
So you won't have that same level of delay. But this process is not, even immediate needs is not speedy in some cases if you do need the pool trust. Some practitioners don't enroll in the pool trust right away. They do an income spend down and then they enroll in the pool trust later, so that you can eliminate the spend down at a later date. So you go back and file a kind of a reapplication, if you will, with the pool trust.
Yep.
To get it updated. So depending upon when care is needed, and if you have clients that are in the hospital and the discharge planner is saying, well, can you go home or do you need to go to rehab? Nina, that's part of where you come in.
Yes, it is. So first of all, I would just like to say something that I've learned in this process is that your NYIA assessment can happen in the hospital. So if you are in need of that, they do not have the right to withhold that from you if you are hospitalized. So what did you ask me?
Well, your role at the point in time when people are in a transitional phase or they're in desperate need of home care, they go to us and we'll do the Medicaid application, but they need service now. So a professional like yourself is going to work with them in getting care in to bridge the gap.
That's right. So first it's, I need to speak with the family and they will, or the client themselves, and they kind of have an idea of maybe what they want. And we kind of work together on that to determine what's reality and what isn't.
Yeah, and the prior slide, Frank, was us doing our healthcare proxies, powers of attorney, making sure those documents are done in advance.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that we think about, that I think the families that come to us, the clients themselves don't always think about is, well, who can help me if I can't help myself? Well, I'm not in a position to help myself. So we always want to make sure that we have someone in line to speak on behalf of someone when they can't. So this could be somebody like Nina, somebody that you professionally hire and you allow them to act on your behalf. More often though, when you're coming to the attorneys for this, it's going to be your healthcare proxy, your power of attorney. Often they can be the same person. Sometimes it makes sense for them not to be the same person. But that's always kind of a planning decision that gets done with the attorney side of all this. But more than anything is you have to have somebody sit in these roles, because there always can be a time where you can't advocate for yourself.
So having a personal advocate, family member in these roles is critical. We believe that having a professional advocate gives you the best opportunity to get the care you need when you need it and to find the right payment sources. And that's a care coordinator, a care manager, professional health advocate, someone like Nina at Ever Home Care Advisors who can work with families and go to the home, interview the family, interview the kids, interview the caregivers, and do a more comprehensive and holistic plan to bridge that gap and to make sure that care is in place for the time period that you need it before Medicaid kicks in. And then, Frank, there are places that these services can get paid from.
Sure. So one of the most common ones that we counsel people about, which makes all the sense in the world, is if you've gone through that whole kind of Medicaid process and you've got your pooled trust up and running, well, the pooled trust is a great source to pay an advocate, because you have to drain that income anyway. So why wouldn't you use it for something like that if it's being such a benefit to you? We also live in a world like where we are strong advocates for long-term care insurance. So if you do have a care coordination benefit as part of your long-term care insurance benefits, that could be another place that it could come from.
Having read hundreds of long-term care policies, almost every policy has some form of care coordination benefit, but almost no holder of that contract knows it's there or how to use it. And you don't have to use your days, like a 90-day elimination period. That's a benefit that's available to you immediately to help get the services that you need and help get a professional in to assess those needs and help with the programming and the plan of care. And of course, today, the unicorn hunt for home health aides, where you need to find people that are quality home health providers that can all be done through a care coordinator, and that benefit can pay for those services. And always you can pay out of pocket, but these expenses do mount, especially if you're also private paying for home health care. So again, a lot to digest, a lot to comprehend. All of the pieces of this, the pool trust, the asset protection Medicaid trust, the financial application, all in prior Medicaid Mondays. But the new rules have thrown a little monkey wrench in, so you have to know how to navigate that. I'm a big fan of the immediate needs application, but because it forces you to go out and get a physician statement as to what the hours are and what the need is. And so that expedites the process to the extent it can be expedited and gets that case moving along. And let's face it, 4 to 6 months is a need for most people that they just can't wait. So using immediate needs is going to help that process.
Couldn't agree more. Now it's a case by case analysis. If it's something that needs to move quickly, it'll move quickly, or at least as quickly as it can.
And so this is Nina's contact information and our contact information. So we'd love to hear from you. And I want to let you know that next month is Medicaid Monday on the second Monday of the month. This is the third Monday because of the holiday. And if you get that denial, if you don't get the hours that you need, how do you go about the appellate process? And we're going to cover that in the next session in November. So we hope you can join us for Medicaid Monday on that date, on November 10th.